Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue au carrefour de l'île Saint-Jean, dans le berceau de la Confédération. Moi, je m'appelle Sean Casey et je suis député de Charlottetown, fier représentant de Charlottetown au Parlement du Canada. Et je suis honoré d'être votre maître de cérémonie aujourd'hui pour cette annonce historique pour les enfants, pour les familles, pour les parents et pour notre société en général. Before we get too far along, I wish to acknowledge that the lands on which we gather are the traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people, Abegwit. They are the past, present, and future caretakers of these lands. And we have quite a collection of dignitaries here. Please bear with me. We have someone who will be more formally introduced at the end of this long list, the Prime Minister of Canada, the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau. We have the Premier of Prince Edward Island, the Honourable Dennis King. The Minister of Families, Children and Social Development for Canada, the Honourable Ahmed Hussen. The Minister of Veterans Affairs, Associate Minister of National Defence, the Dean of the Federal Liberal Caucus and the Member of Parliament for Cardigan, the Honourable Lawrence Macaulay. The Member of Parliament for Malpeque, the Honourable Wayne Easter. The Member of Parliament for Egmont, the Honourable Bobby Morrissey. The Minister of Education, Lifelong Learning, Minister responsible for the status of women and member of the Legislative Assembly for Charlottetown Hillsborough Park, the riding in which we are presently standing, the Honourable Natalie Jameson. Thank you for welcoming us to your riding, Minister Jameson. We have with us Heath MacDonald, MLA for Cornwall Meadowbank, Gordon McNeely, MLA for Charlottetown West Royalty, Dr. Sandy MacDonald of Holland College, et aussi Kathleen Couture, directrice générale de l'Association des centres de la petite enfance francophone de l'île de Prince-Édouard. We all know that when COVID struck, it didn't come with an instruction manual. And because of that, our leaders had to innovate. And it has been a true test of strength of character and a true test of leadership. Mr. Prime Minister, on behalf of Prince Edward Islanders, certainly on behalf of the constituents that I am proud to represent in Ottawa, thank you for your vision, thank you for your patience, thank you for your courage, and thank you for coming back to Prince Edward Island. Il n'y a aucun doute que c'est quelque chose qui demandait une approche collaborative. Et nous sommes tellement fiers de cet effort parmi les deux niveaux de gouvernement ici. Le gouvernement du Canada et de cette province, absolument, ont travaillé ensemble. Et cette annonce aujourd'hui est l'exemple le plus courant de cette collaboration. Un grand merci à nos leaders pour avoir agi dans le meilleur intérêt des Canadiens. Sans plus de présentation, Mesdames et Messieurs, le très honorable Premier ministre du Canada, Justin Trudeau.
Hello everyone, bonjour tout le monde. Ça fait du bien d'être de retour ici sur l'île du Prince-Édouard. Merci à Sean et à l'équipe du Carrefour de l'île Saint-Jean pour votre accueil chaleureux. It's also great to be here with Minister Hussen and the rest of our PEI team, Lawrence, Wayne, and Bobby. And to my friend Premier King and to Minister Jameson. It's good to see you both. I want to thank you both and Dr. Heather Morrison for being such strong leaders throughout this pandemic. I know everyone had to make tough but necessary decisions when it came to the pandemic and your borders. Well, it's paid off because PEI has been an extraordinary leader in your pandemic response. But of course, that should come as no surprise. After all, Islanders are a resilient bunch. You work together to solve big problems, and you're there for one another when times get tough. And perhaps never has that sense of community been more important than during this pandemic. You've gone above and beyond to keep each other safe, and that includes by rolling up your sleeves to get vaccinated. Vos sacrifices ont porté fruit, et de meilleurs jours nous attendent. Alors qu'on s'apprête à rebâtir en mieux, on s'assure que tout le monde a ce dont ils ont besoin pour réussir. Et ça inclut particulièrement les jeunes enfants et les familles. Au cours des derniers mois, j'ai parlé à plusieurs mères partout au pays qui ont dû faire des choix difficiles pendant la pandémie. Mais aujourd'hui, on est ici pour changer les choses. The pandemic made it clear that without access to affordable childcare, too many parents, especially mothers, have to choose between having a family or building a career. Well, families deserve better. That's why we're taking action on childcare. And on that note, I have big news to share for people here on PEI. Today, I can announce that we have signed an agreement with the government of PEI to provide parents on the island with $10 a day childcare for kids under 6. And we're going to get there, Premier King tells me, within 3 years. This ambitious timeline goes to show not only how dedicated PEI is to making life more affordable for families, but it's also an example of how working closely with the federal government means real change happens fast. So we're going to reach $10 a day childcare here on PEI in 3 years. But what happens between now and then? Well, to begin with, average childcare fees will be cut in half by the end of next year. And within 2 years, we'll create over 450 new childcare spaces on the island. This will make life more affordable for you. It'll create good jobs, and it will help parents, especially moms, get back to work while giving kids the level playing field they need to succeed in their first years of school. This is real change that you can count on. Notre entente va augmenter le nombre de places en services de garde à but non lucratif et soutenir le recrutement et la rétention de travailleurs qualifiés. Peu importe où vous vivez, c'est important que votre enfant ait une chance réelle et équitable de réussir. À ce sujet, au cours des 2 dernières semaines, on a signé des ententes avec la Colombie-Britannique, la Nouvelle-Écosse, le Yukon et maintenant l'île du Prince-Édouard. Ces ententes rendront les services de garde de qualité plus abordables pour les familles. Et ça montre bien que lorsqu'on travaille ensemble, y compris au-delà des intérêts partisans, on peut réaliser des vrais progrès pour les familles canadiennes. Supporting middle-class families has always been at the heart of our work to build a stronger Canada. Just take a look at the numbers. We introduced the Canada Child Benefit 5 years ago, and since then, nearly 435,000 kids have been lifted out of poverty across the country. Thanks to the CCB, parents have been able to rely on hundreds of dollars in extra help, tax-free, every month. That's 5 years of direct support to millions of families for everything from healthy meals to kids' boots to after-school clubs. Last week, we increased the benefit once again to keep up with the rising cost of living and put even more money back in parents' pockets. The new maximum benefit will give families $350 more per child than when the CCB was first introduced. And to help kids thrive, particularly after a really tough year, families already receiving the CCB will get an additional $1,200 per child under 6 this year. So parents, you can expect some extra money coming to you as of this Friday. Que ce soit l'augmentation de l'allocation canadienne pour enfants ou l'annonce d'aujourd'hui, on fait en sorte que tout le monde ait le même accès aux possibilités dès le plus jeune âge. Continuons à travailler ensemble pour faire du Canada le meilleur endroit pour être un enfant et aussi pour être un parent. Avant de terminer, je tiens à remercier une fois de plus le Premier ministre King et son équipe pour leur leadership et leur collaboration. Dennis, you've always been a strong partner on childcare. The same goes for other shared priorities like fighting COVID-19, climate change, taking care of vulnerable people. I look forward to continuing to work together. With that, over to you, my friend.
Well, merci. Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Good afternoon. Bonjour, Kwe. It is an exciting day, a game-changing day here for our province. I'm excited to be here, and I want to say a special welcome and thanks to the Prime Minister for making the time to be with us here today. And before I offer my thoughts and remarks on this announcement today and its importance for the future of our province, I want to take a moment to talk about the strength of federal-provincial relations in this province and just how crucial that relationship has been for our province, in particular during the darkest days that we have experienced during this past 18 months or so of the COVID-19 pandemic. From the very beginning, Prime Minister, you made it known that you and your government would respond, and they'd respond quickly. And through that relationship with our MPs, our 4 MPs, Sean and Bobby and Wayne, and of course Minister Macaulay, through ministers like Minister LeBlanc, Minister Freeland, and Minister Hussen, those words were backed up with action. And it's because of that action that we are in this position that we are today, that immediate response, and dare I say, the greatest fiscal response perhaps in the history of this province. So for that, to get us through those difficult days, I say on behalf of all citizens of Prince Edward Island, a deep and sincere thank you. That's amazing for us. Many people, as you know, Prime Minister, go out of their way to point out that you and I come from different political stripes, and they take great points of pointing out that we wear different sweaters, but we get along so well and we do some good things together. I do believe that you and I have both demonstrated a desire to see less of a partisan color and more of a collaboration to make the lives of our citizens better. And I think in the end, that's what it's all about. And I'm glad to be making this announcement today, and others that we have made, others we will make in the future, using that exact recipe. You know, I remember back when we can travel, it seems so long ago. Back when we can travel, I had the privilege to share some time in the Prime Minister's office in Ottawa, and we talked about the importance of strong early learning and childcare, not just for the well-being of children, but for the overall health and well-being of families and parents and communities, but also for the continued growth and the expansion of our economy, and to make sure we best prepare the youngest generations to seize the opportunities of the future. And I remember vividly that conversation. I told them about our campaign pledge to provide free universal pre-kindergarten for 4-year-olds. And the Prime Minister was impressed with that, and he was excited to hear more about it. And Prime Minister, I know you know this, but for the record, that will be rolled out in full this September. So we're really, really excited about that. We also talked about the strength of our early learning system in PEI. We were quick to give credit to former Premiers Pat Binns and Robert Giz and their administrations for their leadership in building that world-class system. I think one thing we're guilty of sometimes here is sometimes we're a little too bashful. We don't do a good enough job for taking credit for the things that we've done. But PEI for decades has been a leader with its innovative model of early years learning delivery. And we talked a great deal about that, and the Prime Minister at one point said, how can we make it better? And the biggest part of making it better, obviously, was making the necessary public investments so that childcare can be affordable and accessible, and that it must be designed to give every child, regardless of family income or geography, the best foundation for a strong future. And we have finalized and announced that here today, and it's an exciting day. It's a game-changing day for our province. You know, we knew that to have a strong and sustainable system, we would need to retain and recruit quality early childhood educators. And to do that, we need to see wages increase, and today's announcement provides that. As well, it provides us with the necessary resources to work with our post-secondary educational partners to ensure that we are providing the best training so that we can provide the best start for our children in the future. I can't help but say that, particularly within the last 18 months, there are many days in our jobs that are difficult and challenging, but it's days like today when we stand and make an announcement like this, and one that we know will change lives for the better, are really, that really mean so much. Having access to more, for more children is a great equalizer for all in this province. Leaving more disposable income in the hands of working families will allow them to provide for more basic needs and extracurricular activities. So this is a positive step forward in the reduction of poverty in our province. And as I said, this is a proud, proud day, an important day for the children and families of our province. And just before I finish, I do often think that as politicians, we often don't take enough time to thank those important people who have made that happen. And it's important today that key people get the credit and recognition for making today happen. Firstly, those who operate early learning centers in this province and those who are with our children every day. You're the reason we're here. You're the reason we do this. And we also have the best early years system in Canada for a reason, and it's because people like Carolyn Simpson and Doreen Gillis, tireless advocates, they're right here to my left, who make the system the very best they can be. They've been the tireless champions for so long. Sonia Hooper, who's there now, who is now the ADM of early years in our department, but for the past 20 years or so has been the heartbeat of the Early Childhood Development Association, and of course Deputy Minister Bethany McLeod, and what can I say about Minister Jameson other than just the ability to get this over the line, to figure things out here, and to really continue to build that legacy we have here in Prince Edward Island of having what we think is the best early years system in the country. So we're in this enviable position because we have people who work so hard to do that. We'll lead the country in reaching the goal of an average of $10 a day early learning and childcare by the end of 2024. Yes, Prime Minister, it's ambitious. That's how we do things here. We'll get it done. You keep the money coming, we'll spend it, we'll get it done. It's a remarkable feat, one that will change the lives of families here in Prince Edward Island. And for that I say thank you, merci, Walalin. And now I would like to invite the Federal Minister of Families, Children and Social Development, Minister Hussen, to the podium. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Premier King. Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Before I begin, I'd also like to acknowledge that we're gathered on the traditional ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Prime Minister, I'm so proud to be here with you and our provincial and, of course, our friends from the PEI caucus for this announcement that has historic implications for families in PEI and across the country. And, of course, families will see this change almost immediately because we will be working together with you, Premier King and Minister Jameson, on fee reduction, on space creation, and on supporting early childhood educators. They are the heart of this system. We can't increase quality and create more affordable childcare spaces without supporting and being there for early childhood educators. And I really want to pay tribute to those men and women who work so hard to be there for our kids. L'accord entre notre gouvernement et celui de l'île du Prince-Édouard est le premier de son genre dans l'histoire de la province. I've had conversations with many families across the country, including right here in Prince Edward Island. And parents, especially mothers, have stressed how important it is for them to have access to not only affordable, but high-quality, inclusive and accessible childcare. And they've said that they want that now. I'm reminded of a particular conversation that I had virtually with Nate and Melissa, who have 2 kids under the age of 6, and how they had a really difficult conversation between them, the parents, on who was going to give up on their career so that one of them would stay home and to take care of their kids during the pandemic. And they were challenged because of that, because of a lack of access to affordable childcare. Ce sont des histoires comme celle-ci qui nous ont permis de continuer à faire pression pour un système pan-canadien d'apprentissage et de garde des jeunes enfants qui assure que personne ne tombe entre les mains du filet. A system that does not force, especially working mothers, to make that difficult choice between caring for their kids and heading back to work. A system that enables us to recruit and retain a well-paid, highly skilled and highly motivated workforce, giving early childhood educators the tools that they need to succeed so that they can deliver high-quality and inclusive childcare for our kids. Ultimately, this is about building a system that will give every child the best possible start in life. And that's why I'm very pleased that not only will we be moving forward with this system right here in PEI, but we will reach our target of $10 a day by 2024, Premier. Congratulations for that ambition, meaning 2 years ahead of schedule. C'est une excellente nouvelle pour tout le monde qui s'appuie sur nos investissements à travers la province, dans l'apprentissage et les services de garde de jeunes enfants. This includes the continued expansion of spaces in the early years. It builds on the great progress, Minister Jameson, that we've built together, that we've achieved together since 2017. And it's making sure that there is adequate number of spaces for vulnerable families, for parents who are seasonal workers, and supports for children with disabilities. It's making sure that each and every child in Prince Edward Island can see themselves in this system. Now, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague and counterpart. You've had enough of me over the last couple of weeks. We've been going back and forth, but I got to say, your department and your team have been an extreme pleasure to work with. You have been ambitious. You've pushed us to get to the right deal, and it's been a while. We've come a long way since February when we talked about this vision, and I'm so proud to welcome you to the podium, and thank you so much for everything that you do. Merci beaucoup.
Wow. Thank you, Minister Hussen. And I want to thank you for your partnership and your friendship over the last number of months. As you may recall, just days after I was appointed to this portfolio, I had the honor of co-chairing the Minister responsible for early learning and childcare meeting with you. Despite a global pandemic, together with our trusted staff, we hit the ground running on this file. It is still hard to believe that we are standing here today with the Prime Minister and Premier making this important announcement that will change the lives of island children and families for decades to come. I am so glad to be able to welcome you and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to our beautiful province. I'd also like to recognize and thank our hosts for today. In fact, my children actually attend this center, so I can personally attest to how wonderful it is. J'aimerais aussi reconnaître et remercier nos hôtes d'aujourd'hui. En fait, mes enfants fréquentent ce centre, donc je peux personnellement témoigner de combien il s'agit d'un endroit merveilleux. As Minister of Education and Lifelong Learning, and the Minister responsible for the status of women, but most importantly, as a mother of 2 young children, it is a pleasure to be a part of what is a landmark announcement for early learning and childcare in this province and indeed across this country. C'est un plaisir de participer à une annonce marquante pour l'apprentissage et la garde des jeunes enfants de la province et au pays. We know women have been hit hard by this pandemic, and in many cases, women have taken on the role of the primary caregiver. We know this announcement will go a long way in supporting island women returning or entering the workforce. I wanted to take a moment and truly thank everyone within our early learning and childcare system for how they have continued to support families, particularly during this last year and a half. Je veux prendre un moment pour remercier sincèrement tout le monde dans notre système d'apprentissage pour la façon dont ils ont continué à appuyer les familles, particulièrement durant la dernière année et demie. I've heard from so many families how comforting it is to know that our centers have continued to offer nurturing, safe, high-quality learning environments as parents return to work throughout the pandemic. As a young mother, as minister, as the MLA for the area, and as an islander, words cannot express my appreciation and gratitude to the dedicated professionals in this sector. The pandemic has affected everyone, and it has shone a light on the importance of early learning and childcare. A strong and sound system is critical to the continued resilience and success of our communities and our economy. Un système solide et fort est essentiel pour assurer la résilience et le succès de nos communautés ainsi que notre économie. I would like to take a moment to recognize the fact that our centres have remained largely open during this pandemic. Thanks to the hard work of the department, our educators, and indeed all islanders, our system led the way in returning to 100% capacity. Through the support of both the federal and provincial government and the passion and hard work of educators and operators, our early learning and childcare system is in a strong position and is prepared for continued growth. Grâce au soutien du gouvernement fédéral et du gouvernement provincial et à la passion et au travail acharné des éducateurs, notre système d'apprentissage est bien placé pour une croissance continue. This day is as much about our sector as it is about our families. With that, I would like to call on Kathleen Couture, directrice générale de l'Association des centres de la petite enfance francophone, to say a few words.
Merci à nos invités distingués et un grand merci tout particulier à notre première ministre, l'honorable Trudeau. Merci beaucoup. Et bienvenue dans notre petit coin. Oh, bienvenue dans notre petit coin. Merci encore. Ici, à le centre éducatif L'Île Enchantée, c'est un de nos 6 centres francophones ici à l'île du Prince-Édouard. On est très fiers que vous êtes tous venus ici aujourd'hui. Funding from the federal government has proved to be an essential determinant in enabling our provincial government to further support our early childhood education programs and the indispensable staff we have. And this 5-year agreement will be a welcome measure for numerous families who struggle with financial stress and hardship. This announcement is an opportunity to put in place concrete measures that will have a stronger chance to alleviate the barriers faced by too many families who should not have to choose between joining the workforce and providing an early childhood education to their children in a certified environment. After 35 years in the field, I began when Brian Mulroney was Prime Minister. I am so excited to be part of what is the promise of a true national childcare system for Canada. As we all know, you cannot have quality early childhood education programs without a strong, trained workforce. We are here today also to celebrate the expected workforce strategy that our provincial government is planning and to put into place as we move forward. I feel, on behalf of all of the early childhood educators and the workforce in Prince Edward Island, that public recognition of the value of our profession and adequate means to fulfill our responsibilities are essential. An appropriate increase in wages, along with a solid retention and recruitment plan that are supported by both a federal government and a provincial government, are concrete ways to demonstrate that our early childhood sector and our educators are valued. We appreciate that fully. Today's events represent an important milestone in the development of early childhood education on PEI and in Canada. We are talking about population growth and about the development of industries and communities all the time. Today, we are recognizing that the children are the bones and the roots of our country. We need to take great care of them to be able to enable them to grow into our next future healthy environment. Le contexte de la pandémie a mis en évidence le caractère indispensable des services de garde dans un environnement sécuritaire pour permettre aux parents de continuer à contribuer au marché du travail. L'annonce aujourd'hui est le genre de mesure qui donne de l'espoir à tous les intervenants et bénéficiaires du secteur de la petite enfance, surtout pour une communauté comme le nôtre qui trouve en situation minoritaire ici à l'île. Je suis très contente de participer à cette journée marquante en petite enfance. Je vous remercie beaucoup pour votre attention. Puis, je ne serais pas moi si je ne pourrais pas dire « Wouhou! » J'aimerais passer le micro. J'aimerais passer encore le micro à l'honorable Trudeau.
Merci. Bravo. Well done. Merci, Kathleen. Happy to take questions from media now, for me or for the Premier, if there's any tough ones.
Merci. On va maintenant passer à la période de questions avec une question, un suivi, one question, one follow-up. We have a 25 minutes question period. First reporter.
Bonjour, good afternoon. Julien Couture, Radio-Canada. Monsieur le Premier ministre, vous avez dévoilé votre plan en avril pour ces garderies à 10 $ en l'espace de 3 mois, on va dire, je pense depuis le mois d'avril. C'est la 4e entente. Ça a mis un petit peu de temps à venir, mais là, vous multipliez les signatures. Comment se sont passées les négociations avec le gouvernement de l'île du Prince-Édouard? Et est-ce que finalement, depuis que vous avez signé la première entente, c'est plus facile de signer avec les autres provinces?
Tout d'abord, il faut souligner que des annonces qui se passent rapidement, ça prend quand même beaucoup de temps pour planifier. Comme le premier ministre a raconté, c'était dès nos premières conversations, quand il venait de se faire élire, qu'on parlait de l'importance d'investir dans la petite enfance et dans les familles. En 2017, le ministre Ahmed Hussen a commencé à négocier à signer des ententes avec toutes les différentes provinces, justement pour des investissements du fédéral pour faciliter la livraison de services de garde pour les enfants. Donc, ça fait plusieurs années qu'on est là-dessus. Mais ça prenait la pandémie pour que ce ne soit pas juste une priorité pour le gouvernement libéral, mais que ce soit, ou pour les provinces, mais que ce soit aussi une priorité pour les milieux des affaires, pour les économistes, qui comprenaient ce que les femmes, les familles et les premiers ministres progressistes le savaient depuis longtemps, c'est que c'est un investissement nécessaire, pas juste en programme social, mais pour l'économie. Alors, quand notre ministre des Finances, la première femme ministre des Finances, Chrystia Freeland, a choisi de mettre un investissement massif dans le budget de 2021 pour la relance post-pandémie sur les services de garde, on s'est mis tout de suite à négocier avec les provinces. Évidemment, il y avait plusieurs provinces qui avaient déjà des longueurs d'avance. La Colombie-Britannique était engagée là-dedans. On était très contents d'avoir eux comme premiers, mais en même temps qu'on négociait avec la Colombie-Britannique, avec la Nouvelle-Écosse, on négociait avec l'île du Prince-Édouard. Chaque province a des modèles légèrement différents. Alors, il fallait qu'on arrive à un niveau où on pouvait dire 10 $ par jour dans les années à venir, qu'on réduise de moitié dans la première année et qu'on soit là pour les salaires et la qualité d'emploi des travailleurs et travailleuses dans le milieu, mais aussi des investissements qui allaient durer et faire partie d'un avancement rigoureux. C'était des négociations extrêmement positives, mais je dois dire que l'ambition et la présence et l'engagement du premier ministre King à cet enjeu-là m'arrive à pas du tout être surpris que l'île du Prince-Édouard est un des premiers à avoir signé. Et je dois souligner d'abord que ça souligne à quel point les 3 différentes provinces avec qui on a signé, c'était un gouvernement NPD, un gouvernement libéral et un gouvernement progressiste conservateur. Alors, ça démontre à quel point on peut et on doit travailler ensemble au-delà des lignes partisanes pour livrer pour les familles et pour ce faire, le premier ministre King a été un grand ami et partenaire.
Monsieur le Premier ministre, pour rebondir sur cette annonce, vous êtes aujourd'hui dans un centre scolaire communautaire francophone, dans une province majoritairement anglophone. Est-ce que c'est aussi un moyen pour vous d'envoyer un message à la communauté francophone qui vit hors Québec?
D'abord, en tant que parti, on a toujours été là pour défendre les minorités linguistiques officielles à travers le pays. Et je peux souligner que, d'ailleurs, à l'intérieur de l'accord qu'on a signé maintenant avec 4 différentes provinces et territoires, parce qu'on a le territoire du Yukon aussi, à l'intérieur même, de façon explicite dans l'accord, on mentionne l'importance d'offrir des services de garde et d'assurer des services de garde en langue officielle minoritaire. Donc, cette protection de notre belle langue française à travers le pays et des communautés linguistiques minoritaires, c'est toujours au cœur de ce qu'on va faire.
Je vous remercie.
Merci.
Hello, Brittany Spencer, CBC. Thank you for taking our questions. I guess my first question is about the time period that these goals have been set to have $10 a day daycare within 3 years. My question is how? How is this going to be accomplished within this shortened time frame?
First of all, as you know, we laid out what we felt was an extremely ambitious timeline of 5 years for $10 a day daycare across the country, with an immediate reduction by 50% in the first year for parents right across the country. And that was sort of the base that we were demanding of every province. And, you know, Premier King makes it look easy, but there's a lot of provinces really stumbling over $10 a day. Well, not stumbling, but there's challenges in the negotiations to get to something that matters so much. We have to remember that getting to $10 a day daycare is not the be-all and end-all of this. We needed to make sure that not only were we creating more affordable spaces, that we were creating also more spaces, and that those spaces be high quality. And that's why folding in guarantees on wages and quality of training for early childhood educators, where we meant that creation of spaces, are all parts of the accord. As to why Premier King is confident that he's going to be able to get to $10 a day in 3 years, I will first start by saying it's because they have a system that has worked very, very well over the past years, that this influx of federal cash, this federal partnership, is going to allow them to leap forward even more aggressively. But I'm happy to turn to Premier King to give more of the details on how he's going to be delivering for families across PEI.
Well, I would never say it as articulate as you, Prime Minister, but essentially what we have committed to in our budget is to immediately begin to get to $25 a day daycare, which our early learning, which will begin in January. We're also doing 4-year-old pre-K, which is starting in September, which will be universal, in which government will pay the cost. So what you'll see, ours is a little bit more innovative and unique here, essentially that if you have a 4-year-old who is in early learning center, the government will pay for the 4-year-old component of it, and then your cost will be fixed beyond that and on the sliding scale backwards. And the infusion of cash from the federal government is targeted a little bit more easily here, simply because we're a smaller jurisdiction, but also because we have a model which is provincially regulated. We know who is in this field, and we know who we need to work with, how we can target and expand spaces so that we don't just create 300 new spaces in Charlottetown or Summerside, but there's more spaces in Tignish and Surrey and beyond. So we, as I mentioned in my remarks, we have a tremendous leadership group within our Department of Education and Lifelong Learning who have built this system. They have negotiated feverishly with their federal counterparts to maintain that system. And we actually think and hope, and perhaps you might see down the road, that other jurisdictions may want to try to adopt what we do here. So, thank you.
And for my follow-up question, you sort of touched on it there, Premier, about those new spaces, those 450 new spaces. My question is about how will those spaces be allocated? And I know they will, in this deal, they've been promised over the next 2 years. And how quickly, how soon can we start to see some of those spaces roll out? Yeah,
I think those will be some details that we'll certainly share, Brittany, in the days ahead. The ink is barely dry on this one, but our cabinet was briefed this morning by our leadership team here, and they were asked many of these questions as well. And I think what you will see in the days and weeks ahead is to determine, first of all, where the needs are. There's also some special negotiations and conversations that will take place with our BIPOC community, with the Indigenous community as well, to find out what the barriers to maybe accessing childcare, is for those individuals and those groups as well. So there is a meticulous plan that will be laid out here in the days ahead. But just for today, this is an exciting announcement, obviously, and it is our desire to see, every child in Prince Edward Island have access to this, an affordable, accessible, early years plan, so they get the best start in life. So,
thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. Teresa Wright with the Canadian Press. More than 8,500 unionized staff with the Canada Border Services Agency have given their union a strike mandate, with action potentially starting on August 6th. How would a strike impact your plans to reopen the border to vaccinated U.S. travelers on August 9th? And what will you do to prevent job action?
Obviously, we will be working very closely with the CVSA union to make sure that we're negotiating, getting to the bargaining table, trying to figure out a path forward. It's been a tough year for everyone. It's been a tough year for people in just about every line of work, but the border guards have been challenged with reduced numbers, yes, but also an increase in things that they've had to verify as people have come through the border, come across our border for essential travel. So we recognize that there have been challenges, but we're going to work with them, and we're hopeful that there won't be any disruptions.
And nearly all of Europe is covered by a vaccine passport, and New Zealand and Australia are close to having such documentation ready. Meanwhile, 16 months into the pandemic in Canada, we still have not heard exactly what or how or when the federal government plans to provide vaccinated Canadians with proof of their status when they travel abroad. What is Canada doing to develop a vaccine passport system, and will it be ready this year?
As you well know, we have a federation where provinces are in charge of the various health systems and indeed the vaccination status. So we have been working very, very closely, the federal government and the provincial governments, on moving forward together on proof of vaccination credentials. The conversations are active and ongoing, and we're going to make sure that Canadians will have sufficient credentials to be able to travel around the world as they're fully vaccinated, which gives me a great opportunity to remind Canadians that you want to get fully vaccinated. The ability to travel around the world, indeed the ability to do more things, and mostly the ability to avoid the spikes that are going to come with the potential next arrivals of variants and the spikes that we're seeing around the Delta variant in unvaccinated Canadians is something that we can prevent if people continue to get fully vaccinated, if people continue to step up. Do it to protect yourself, do it to protect your family, do it to protect your community, do it to protect kids who can't yet get vaccinated when they're under 12. We need to keep pushing through so we can end this pandemic once and for all. Thank you, Teresa. And
so does that mean that you're going to be leaving it up to the provinces, or is the federal government taking a lead on this?
The federal government will be involved in the international level of certification, so we have a role to play to make sure that the credentials that Canadians have are going to be able to work or be accepted around the world. But there's lots of active conversations with the provinces on what exact form that will take. We're going to try and make things simple and efficient for Canadians. Thank you. Tout à fait. Nous savons que c'est important de pouvoir voyager encore une fois. Et pour cela, nous travaillons avec les provinces sur des certificats de vaccination, sur un processus par lequel les Canadiens vont pouvoir avoir une preuve de vaccination pour voyager à l'international. Mais c'est des conversations qu'on a avec les provinces qui, évidemment, détiennent les informations dans leur système de santé pour leurs citoyens. On veut respecter la vie privée, on va travailler en partenariat avec les provinces, mais on va s'assurer qu'on a une preuve de vaccination adéquate pour que les gens puissent voyager dans le monde.
Perfect. Hi, Mike Robar from The Guardian. So my question is about sort of the universality of the program. Given that there's 7,200, give or take one, children as of July of last year in the province, with the extra 452, that still leaves a little over 3,000 kids wanting spaces or potentially needing spaces. So I wonder how long until that demand is met to make the program truly universal.
I think that is a great question for Dennis.
And I'd like to pass it down the line here as well. That's how you stay elected a long time, I think. But no, seriously, I think, one of the questions that we have, around our table today that we talked about, Michael, was just that. What does this look like beyond? Are we serving everybody? And we've really tried very, very hard not to try to make this program a perfect fit right off the bat. We know it will need to be adjusted. We know we'll need to learn more. We have a great relationship through the Early Childhood Development Association, also all of the early years centres. So we know where the needs are and where we can forecast the need going forward. But I think it's fair to say our desire here in the shortest amount of time as possible is we want to make sure that this is available to every child in Prince Edward Island, no matter how much money your parents have or where you live or what your background is. We want this to be provided to everyone as soon as possible, and that's the ultimate goal. And as to how we get there, we'll start to sort of roll that out over the days ahead for sure.
And then follow up along the same lines. I know it's in here saying there's going to be 15 new spaces for children with ASD, but I wonder what else, what other supports you can announce for children living with disabilities to, again, make it more universal.
Yeah, maybe Minister James, maybe, yeah, sure. Sure. This is a great, glad I learned this.
He was ready for all the tough ones for me.
Yes, thank you for the question, and thank you, Premier, for passing it along to me. Certainly, we recognize the importance of supporting our children who have autism or on the spectrum or have special needs, and it's since being appointed to this role, it has been a priority for me. And if I had a day, I would describe to you what we've done on the autism file specifically. Certainly as it relates to our special needs children, as you had said, there'll be more children that have access to those services. In addition, we'll be hiring some additional individuals within the department to support those needs. And also, what we've heard from our special needs assistants and our autism coordinators is that we need to ensure that they are compensated accordingly and appropriately because they do such important work for our children. And it is a commitment by this government to ensure that they are on the wage grid in a very short order, because that is something that I've heard loud and clear, and we just want to make sure that all of our kids have access to the most quality education starting at a very young age.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. C'est ce qui m'a fait la conférence de presse d'aujourd'hui.
Merci.